Hey there. Had an interesting discussion recently. We were talking about health check. And for those of you who haven't been doing containers for a while, you may not even be aware of this, but that is a command or a keyword you can put in your Docker file. And it dates back to early days in Docker. If you run a container based on this image, just a flat Docker or containerd um, runtime engine, it will periodically run whatever is in that command in the health check. In this case, it's every 3 seconds. And then if the command fails 2 times in a row, it will kill the process and should restart a new container, assuming that you're not healthy anymore. And this one also has a timeout set to 1 second. Now, this is a silly health check because all I'm doing is spitting the date out to a file, but that's actually something I wanted to do to exemplify something. So if I do a Docker run, we'll background that, and you see this is Nginx, so it should run in the background just fine. And I'll do an RM, so it'll clean itself up when I get rid of it. I'll call this HC. And I've already built this as HC locally, so we're going to run that. Now, if I do a Docker exec IT on the HC container, and I want to run tail on temp time.txt. So it's like a cron job almost. It's running every 3 seconds. It's spitting that out. So the health check is doing what it's supposed to do. Now, if we were running in a swarm cluster, it would also help with, rescheduling. If a container would die, the swarm scheduler would pick up, start a new task, and get the container running somewhere else. The question came up is, why don't these run in Kubernetes? Because they don't. If you've ever noticed, you could have a health check line in your image, but it's not going to do anything for you. It's not going to translate to a liveness probe or anything in Kubernetes. And that is because Kubernetes is explicitly written that way. They purposely don't run these because they have their own construct. As I mentioned, they have a liveness probe. There's also a readiness and a startup probe. But in order to demonstrate this, I have type simple pod. Let's go ahead and I have a kind cluster running right now, so I'm just going to apply this. And just to prove to you that it doesn't do it, we'll do exec IT on the HC pod, and let's just do an ls. You can see there's nothing in that temp folder getting dropped because, again, it just doesn't do it. Now, if you did want to do this, let's go ahead and delete pod. If you did want to do this in Kubernetes, as I mentioned, they have probes to do this, and the same kind of functionality, a little more verbose, I should say. Let's show you what that would look like. So here's the same pod now with a liveness probe added in. I've got an exec. There's a different ways you could format this. I'm having to do it a little ugly because I'm trying to get the standard.redirect to work, so I'm having to actually explicitly call out to sh. But you see what I'm doing. I'm just running this command every 3 seconds with a three failure threshold. So let's apply this. See if it's running. It is. Do the same exec, and we see we have a K time there. Let's change this to tail it. Autocomplete doesn't work, of course. If I could type, oh my gosh. And there we go. So there you go. That's how you would do the same kind of a thing in Kubernetes. Now, of course, there are other aspects of both health checks and liveness probe that's around startup times and retries and everything else, but I think you get the gist of it from here. Thought it was interesting in case you didn't know.